have actually been lucky enough to experience a biomedical revolution where life expectancy has dramatically changed. And the question is, why did that happen in the 20th century?
So here's a problem. Roughly 1% of all of the things that we might call works of art in the history of the world, just 1% survive.
The silent majority of Arab men, we never hear about them or from them or about what their lives are like, their relationships with women and children. And that's the story that I want to tell in my work.
There's some parts that are hard, but you know, this hasn't been written about. It's so important, and like that is what gets me up in the morning. It's like that I have to write this.
Some of my work is to try to get people to understand that our received notions about gender and race and sexuality are just that. They serve particular structures.
You have had a unique journey through this life that has given you ideas and experiences that can be offered to the world in some way that helps forward some sort of school of thought, some intervention, some disruption.
I had a student stop in who I didn't know, and she said, "Oh, I follow you on HuffPost." And I said, "You what?"
My name is Angelica Gonzalez, and I'm a professor in biomedical engineering at Yale University, and I'm an expert in immunological and vascular biology and tissue engineering.
Hi, my name is Mary Miller. I'm the Dean of Yale College, and I'm an expert in the art of the ancient New World.
I'm an expert on Black sexualities, queer sexualities, as well as other expressions of sexuality and gender.
I'm Associate Professor of Film Studies and African American Studies.
I'm an expert in environmental justice.
Using ethnography as a form of pastoral care, the globalization of assisted reproductive technologies.
Industrial ecology.
The mathematics of information.
Muslims in America.
I did an op-ed project out of New York, and I said, I'm an expert on rape, when we had to do our little exercise. And afterwards she said, oh, you know what? We're showing Central Park 5, and you know, we're gonna try to get Ken Burns and Susan Burns and her husband and one of the Central Park 5 and the psychologist who was interviewed in the movie, and we would love if you came and moderated the discussion. And I went, and it was amazing. And I tried to do a balance of sort of how this was part of a longer historical narrative in which African American men are falsely accused of raping white women.
There was, for the first time in human history, a collaboration between the general public and the scientists, which is crucial for science to work. And you can think of these interventions that really change our lives as medical or public health interventions. But the truth of it is that it was discoveries in basic research that were the engine, they were the fuel that led to these advances. So for the first time also in the history of publicly funded research, those funds might receive huge cuts that I feel, and the scientific community at large feels, that it could really destroy an ecosystem that it took over 100 years to build.
I sat in my son's piano lesson, and for half an hour I wrote an op-ed, and I took advantage of that opportunity that time. And the op-ed project, people loved it and sent it to the New York Times, and it was published immediately. And I sort of naively thought, well, that's nice, you know. Now I'm going to go write my papers. And I got so much feedback. I got so much comment. I got so much interaction with people that I never would have talked to otherwise. The dean of the medical school wrote me a congratulatory note, and I heard from people all over the country, and in fact all over the world, who resonated with the topic I wrote about. And then I'm right now writing a grant with somebody that I'd never met before who reached out to me because of the op-ed. And then the Office of the National Coordinator, which is the people in the White House who work on medical records, called me and said, you have a lot of interesting ideas, and you know, and how can we change things?
One of the most interesting things to me is looking at the history of how Islamic terms become household words in America. What these words mean to most Americans has almost nothing to do with what these words actually mean to most Muslims. So most Americans think of a fatwa as a death threat because with Salman Rushdie and Khomeini, then fatwa became a household word. And what most people don't realize is that Fatwa is not a death threat to Muslims. I mean, Muslims understand a fatwa to literally mean a religious opinion, which one can take or leave.
I think that we need to communicate how creative and accessible scientific discovery really is. Meaning people think of physics and science as cold, static, and finished. But the reality is we have 96% of the universe that we don't understand. I think if people realized how much, well, first of all, how little we know and how crazy what we do know is, how weird what we understand of the universe is with quantum mechanics, I think we would have a lot more energy in science.
I feel really strongly about that we need to change the narrative in the public square.
I wouldn't want to be part of the conversation just to have my voice heard. I would want to bring something new to the argument, and I would want to be able to follow it up with decided action.
What I would like to do is make sure that others understand that that minorities and women are interested in the STEM fields, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics field.
Interconnectedness is something that I find really fascinating because it means that you can't isolate yourself in one small corner of the field.
One of the things I once told my student who said, "Tell me how I play the game." I said, "No, don't play the game, change it."
First op-ed came out of our experience of our bungalow at Breezy Point. You know, a disaster relief service has to be aware of how people are different culturally. And they really didn't do their homework out at Breezy Point.
I wrote an op-ed on gun control. I saw that there were over 2,500 comments.
The first op-ed was published in 10 blogs, and it got over 10,000 views in less than 24 hours. I've never done anything that has been that short that has caused so much of a reaction. So.
We always say at the op-ed project is there can be consequences for saying something of consequence.
But the alternative is to be inconsequential, and it's ultimately about mattering.
We believe that the best ideas, regardless of where they come from, should have a chance to be heard and to shape society and to change the world.